is Connor.
Hello. In 1998, I was still quite an innocent 17-year-old boy when my parents decided it would be a good idea for me to spend the summer in Spain. I was doing my end-of-school exams the following year. I was studying Spanish. And so my dad thought it would be a good idea if I went to stay with a family who were from the same religious community I'd grown up in. And I could get a job, learn lots of Spanish, and get top marks in my exams. So off I went, and the family were indeed very, very religious. I don't think they were that delighted to have a chubby 17-year-old boy land on them. And they were all quite stressed out, with the exception of one of them. Anna Maria was about 2 years older than me, and she was a lot of fun. And we'd escape from her parents, and we'd go smoking, or we'd go to a bar and we'd have some beer, which was very exciting because it was legal to drink in Spain when you were 17, but not in Ireland, so it felt extra thrilling. And we'd tell each other rebellious things about how we didn't really believe in Jesus and how our parents were wrong. I also had a bit of kind of sexual self-discovery that summer, and that had nothing to do with Anna Maria. I went to a swimming pool, and I don't know if any of you have ever been in the men's changing room of a Spanish swimming pool, but if not, you should go. It was delightful to 17-year-old Connor to see all these tanned bodies and all those big swinging willies. It was great. Changed me forever. But at the end of the summer, I came home. I obviously hadn't got a job because my Spanish clearly wasn't good enough. I hadn't learnt any Spanish either. And Anna Maria asked if she could come and stay with my family in Ireland. And I guess my parents felt that they owed her family a favour, and so we said yes. And she came over. And the day before she arrived in Ireland, we got a phone call from her sister who said, Anna Maria is bipolar. She's off her meds at the moment. She's not doing very well. Please keep an eye on her. So she came, and at the beginning, it was kind of like it had been during the summer. It was fun, but she was clearly more emotional than she had been, more unstable. And one day, she was out, and she banged her head somehow, and she got a cut on her forehead. And that evening, I was alone in the house with her, and I heard some shouting from the bathroom, and I went upstairs, and she was there with a bandage on her forehead, but she had a scissors, and she was hacking off the bandage, and she was hacking off bits of her hair, and she was shouting at me that she needed to go to a hospital, and I didn't know what to do, so I rang my parents, and they came home. And the next morning, my dad brought Anna Maria to a doctor, and the doctor said she needs to go back home to Spain to her own doctor. And so we changed her flight tickets, and she seemed okay with the idea of going home. And that morning, when she was due to leave, I said goodbye to her, and I went to school, and Dad drove her to the airport. Dad was a teacher in my school, so afterwards he came to school, he taught his lessons, and he drove me home that afternoon. And when we were in the car, I asked if everything had gone okay at the airport, and he said, Anna Maria is still in Ireland. And I said, oh, what happened? And he didn't say. It was all very awkward, and he was being evasive. And then I got home, and there were friends of the family there talking to my mum in hushed tones, and I knew something had happened. And then my mum and dad took me into the living room, and they said, sit down, Connor, we've something to tell you. And I said, oh, well, I know Anna Maria is still in Ireland. And they said, no, sit down, we've something to tell you. My dad told me that when he'd brought Anna Maria to the airport, and she'd been going through security, she started screaming, and she'd told the airport police that my family were in a cult, and that the 17-year-old son in the family had raped her. And that was me. I was the 17-year-old son. And I hadn't raped her. I was gay. I was a virgin. I hadn't ever even kissed someone. And it was real. During the day, the police had come to my house, and they'd taken the sheets off my bed, and they'd taken it away. And it was the most serious thing that had ever happened to me in my life. And almost as soon as it started, it was over, because she was taken to a hospital. She told the doctors that she'd made it up. The doctors believed her. the police believed her, and it was all over. And I still saw myself in a different way after that, and I was numb at first, but then I started crying, and my dad gave me some money, and me and my sister went to the cinema, and we watched There's Something About Mary. And I didn't laugh. And over the next few weeks, things kind of got back to normal, and a few weeks later, we got a phone call to the house, and I answered the phone, and it was Anna Maria. And I couldn't speak to her, but also I couldn't hang up on her, so I just pretended to be my brother. And she said she was back in Spain. She was calling to say that she was sorry. She was calling to say thank you. She was back on her medication. She was back in the religious community again. I grew up that summer. I became a man, and not in some kind of fun, frothy, coming-of-age kind of way. I became an adult because I learned that when my world crumbles, the rest of the world just keeps on turning. Thanks very much.
Conor, everyone.